We told you Biden family Thanksgivings are legendary, and Nantucket was no different this year. We thought Frankie Four Fingers would lose another finger, but instead, the big guy gave Hunter an early Christmas gift, a pardon over turkey dinner. Quote, no reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases could reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out only because he is my son. And that is wrong. I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision. We were still picking at Thanksgiving leftovers when Joe pardoned his son and hopped on a plane to Africa. He went to Angola, 7,000 miles away. Oh, and he left his wife home to face the music.
Dr. Biden. Dr. Biden, what changed on the pardon for Hunter?
Biden's even leaking to CNN. He wasn't really sure if he was going to pardon Hunter, but his wife made him do it. You know women.
Clearly, there was pressure inside the family. We were told really in recent weeks that Dr. Jill Biden, First Lady Jill Biden, was very supportive of the president doing something like this. The president was not sure, but we clearly have seen now he has come to this decision to pardon his son Hunter.
Biden pardons his son at his donor's Nantucket home, throws his wife under the bus, jets off to Africa, and makes a fool out of Binder. Because this poor lady said 1,000 times a pardon was off the table.
We've also said several times that the president would not pardon or commute the sentence for his son, Hunter. I just want to make sure that that is not going to change over the next 6 months. The president's saying he would not.
It's still a no. It's still a no.
And will always be a no.
It's still a no. It will be a no. It is a no. And I don't have anything else to add. Will he pardon his son? No.
I guess no means yes.
Leave now and agree with President-elect Trump that the justice system has been weaponized for political purposes and that it needs root and branch reform.
No, read the president's statement. Seriously, read the president's statement. He said he believes in the Department of Justice. He does. He also believes that raw politics infected the process and it led to a miscarriage of justice. He believes his son was unfairly targeted. He said that what his political opponents have done to my son, that's his words, is cruel and enough is enough.
So Biden is saying the Biden Justice Department was weaponized against Hunter, but not against Trump. The same Justice Department. Got it. It's fitting that Biden's presidency started with a cover-up and ended with one. The laptop, the lab leak, his health, the coup, and then a blanket pardon that historians are saying is bigger in scope than Richard Nixon's. Biden went from my son did nothing wrong to here's a pardon that goes back a decade. 42-year sentence for tax and gun felonies. It's the crack's fault. Biden went from I never talked business with my son to, yeah, I had spaghetti dinners with his Ukrainian clients, but we just talked about the weather. I didn't think it was possible for Biden to humiliate the Democrats any more than he already has. We all knew his son was going to get pardoned. No one would ever let their son go to prison if they had the power to stop it. But just like every hoax, whether it's Russia or Smollett going out for a footlong at 2 a.m. January in Chicago, the media fell for it. They said Joe had principles.
A presidential promise to put the law before a family.
Our current president of the United States has so much respect for the law that he has said he would not pardon his son. I mean, what, you know, again, it's all about the contrast.
He is not pardoning his son, which he could do. He is not doing it because he is living what it means to have a rule of law in this country. Yeah. And it is, I mean, if you want to know if he believes it, you could actually see what is happening with his own son.
Yeah. This whole time, Biden was the lying dog-faced pony soldier. How the heck did the media get to a place where they assume any politician is telling the truth? Finally, the left is as sick as being lied to as we are. Now, we'd have a lot more respect for Biden if he had said, yeah, I'm going to pardon Hunter. He's my only son. But he acts like he has a monopoly on morality. At least Trump doesn't make promises he knows he's going to break. You might not agree with what he does, but when he says he's going to pardon Jan 6ers, he'll probably do it. Recess his cabinet, he'll probably do it. Fire the FBI director, he's done it once, he'll do it again. Joe Biden tells you he's George Washington, and then he acts like Benedict Arnold. And it breaks the Democrats' heart every time.
I just want Democrats to stop acting like they are on this moral high ground politically when they have shown us they're not, whether it's skipping the primary process when Biden stepped down and things like Biden pardoning his son. Stop acting like y'all the pure party and Republicans aren't.
Jeffrey Toobin, who knows a little something about dishonoring the office, says, quote, Biden's pardon for his son dishonors the office. Governor of Colorado, Democrat, says Biden put his family ahead of the country. And now Biden's legacy is in the crosshairs again.
This pardon is just deflating. Joe Biden just made clear his son Hunter is above the law.
Is a really bad look for him, and I think it's potentially a destructive thing for his party. People's opinions that the system is somehow stacked in favor of Democrats against Republicans. I think this looks like the nation's head Democrat using the system for his own benefit.
This pardon will tarnish Joe Biden's legacy. I mean, Joe Biden, let's be clear here, he lied to us for a long time.
The media is even having Democrats do the walk of shame for lying to their audience. Watch this.
In July of 2023, just after that plea deal fell through, this is what you said. I want to watch.
Do you think a pardon for his son would be a mistake?
Yes, and I don't think there's any chance that President Biden is going to do that, unlike his predecessor, who pardoned all of his friends and anyone who had any access to him.
What does that feel like, watching yourself back then, reassuring people that Biden was not going to issue a pardon for his son?
Yeah, and I think that if that plea agreement and that plea deal had gone through, there would be no pardon. That was a satisfactory outcome.
It had already fallen
that
through.
Only was. Sorry?
When you reacted, this was when the deal had fallen through.
Democrats have made liars out of the media, and look what happened. The Democrats are out of power, and the media is out of viewers. Democrat numbers guru Nate Silver is so angry, he's telling Democrats to not vote for any Democrat in 2028 who doesn't repudiate the pardon within 48 hours. But Eric Holder, Obama's wingman, says the pardon was warranted. Had his name been Joe Smith, it would have been a different story. He's right. If Hunter was Joe Smith, he'd be in prison for drug possession, sex trafficking, tax evasion, money laundering, foreign lobbying, and probably wire fraud. Joe Smith would have been in federal lockup sharing a cell with Mookie. Anyway, we were told that a president who pardons a family member is guilty of obstruction.
In the event the president pardons anyone in an investigation in which the president is a witness, a subject, or the target, those investigative files will all be turned over to the Congress. The Congress ought to know whether the president is using the pardon power to obstruct justice. The American people have a right to know. I think it is clearly constitutional. It doesn't prohibit him from granting a pardon, even a pardon he shouldn't grant. But it does say that we will be able to at least find out whether the president is using this power to shield himself from liability.
Joe Biden, by pardoning Hunter, was kind of pardoning himself. But the media doesn't think Joe went far enough. They want a pocket pardon.
I hope that President Biden will also issue preemptive pardons to all of those people threatened by the injustice of what will become the Department of Justice in the Trump administration. That, of course, includes Jack Smith and all of his staff, many Department of Justice lawyers. It includes President Biden himself, although we don't know that anyone can legally pardon themselves. He will need a pardon because he is going to be harassed and charged for no crimes whatsoever.
Why would Joe need blanket pardons for himself and his son if he didn't do anything wrong? If he didn't want Hunter to do prison time, he could have just commuted his sentences and said he dished out blanket immunity, absolving Hunter of all past and future sins. The pardon dates back all the way to 2014. Now, what happened in 2014? That's when Hunter joined Burisma, and that's when Joe was handed the Ukraine portfolio. In a way, Trump was impeached for wanting to look into what Joe pardoned Hunter for. And this pardon covers the Ukraine money, the Russia money, the China money, and the diamonds, the paintings, and all those back taxes. Got to hand it to the big guy. He tied this operation up with a perfect bow. He had his son fly all over the world in his jet, selling access to his dad, hoovering up all the foreign cash all over the world, not paying any taxes on it, setting up shady shell companies to hide the money from the IRS, and then paying for the Biden family lifestyle because none of the Biden family members could make a clean living on their own. Then he got caught before an election. The FBI and the CIA covered it up. His son was found guilty, pardons him. So the family gets to keep the cash, and Hunter doesn't have to pay a price. If you're running a criminal enterprise, it's brilliant. Joe really pulled it off. But he didn't do it without a lot of help. We believe Hunter Biden was an intelligence operation, whether he even knew it or not. He was going all over the world selling access to his dad, right under the nose of our intel agencies, who had a clear view of who was dirty and who was being blackmailed. Notice everyone around Hunter Biden's either in prison, awaiting sentencing, fled the country, or just disappeared. Everyone Hunter was talking to was on FBI wiretap. And every time someone sniffed around the Biden family, they got blocked. The IRS whistleblowers started looking into the big guy, blocked. FBI informants, ignored. The Secret Service cleaned up all his messes. The DOJ tried to give him a sweetheart deal just before a judge smoked it out. And when Congress wanted to talk to the sugar brother, the guy who paid millions out of pocket to cover Hunter's taxes, the CIA told investigators, stand down. The sugar brother was untouchable. This pardon is the deep state's screw you before Trump returns. Catch me if you can. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.